Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is the English translation of the Majlis of Hazrat Maulana Qamar Uzzaman Saheb Damat Barakatuhum, which took place on Thursday, the 19th of Rabi'ul Awwal 1445, corresponding with the English date, the 5th of October 2023. Hazrat Wala is saying the silsila and this pattern of the Majlis is going back, dated right to the time of Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab, and it is continuing up till now. Now, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab used to say that I achieved tremendously and learned abundantly from Hazrat Maulana Tanvi, and whatever I learned. However, I derived much benefit from the Maktubat-e-Rashidiyya and the Maktubat-e-Masumiyya. So sometimes I also read from the Maktubat-e-Rashidiyya and the Maktubat-e-Masumiyya. Now, this personality, Hazrat Khaja Muhammad Masoom, was a man of great capacity. 7,000 were his deputies and khalifas alone. And he is giving all of us a nasihat. What is the nasihat and the advice that he gives? He writes there to the student or the disciple, Mullah Ataullah Surti. In his name, he writes this particular answer to the letter, or rather extends some advice. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. He then goes on by addressing him by his name, that you and all those who are far away continuously remember me in your du'as. Thereafter, with so much of respect, he says to him that Chand roza zindagi ko जो कि बहुत कीमती है, सबसे कीमती अशिया में सर्व करना चाहिए. This life of a few days are so priceless. Therefore, it should be spent in the most priceless thing. And what is that? वो मौला हकीकी जल्ल सुल्तानुहु के खुशनुदियों का हासिल करना है. And that is spending it in achieving the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. कमर हिम्मत को इस बुजुर्ग काम में कस कर बांधे, और जो कुछ उसके मुनाफी है उससे अलग हो जाइए. Therefore, fasten your belt, meaning completely, totally, and with so much dedication. Dedicate yourself to this particular goal, and anything that is against it, then separate yourself from it. He goes on to say so wonderfully, but before we carry on to that, let me just quote to you. Hazrat Wala is quoting an incident of, there was this Aka and this master who says to his slave that listen, what will you eat? And the slave then goes on to say that Hazrat, whatever you feed me, jo aap khilayenge. Listen, where would you sleep? जहाँ आप सुलाएंगे, what will you wear? जो आप पहनाएंगे. That whatever he asked, he said that whatever you give me, I am your humble servant. Listening to that, the master was affected most deeply and was taken aback, and he thought to himself that for a few rupees I bought the slave in the market, but I've learned the great lesson of life from him. Therefore, addressing him, he goes on to say that listen, from today you are my master and I am your slave, because you have taught me this great lesson. Meaning that if this is your servitude and this is your type of understanding with a master, which is very artificial and very temporary like me, you have taught me a great lesson, that how far am I, and should I not be like this with the genuine master, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allahu Akbar. He goes on to say very, very beautifully and right, Hazrat Khaja Muhammad Masoom, he says that banda ke haq mein kamal ye hai कि उसका मौला उससे राज़ी हो और वो उससे यानी अपने मौला से राज़ी हो. He says excellence in the servant, in you and me, in the bondsman of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lies in this, that Allah is pleased with him and he is pleased with Allah. He is pleased with Allah. Nevertheless, this maqam is a very, very high maqam, and that's exactly what Khaja Muhammad Masoom immediately after that states. इसलिए मकाम रिज़ा तमाम मकामात से ऊपर है. It is for this reason that the maqam and the station of Riza, where the servant is pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every situation, it is the highest of all stations. It is for this reason that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us in the dua to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this treasure in these words: Allahumma inni as'aluka sihhata wal iffata wal amanata wa husn al khulq wal ridha bil qadr. Oh Allah, I ask you, and the dua goes on. But the last, what is asked for, and the tartib also, and that's the highest of all stations, is that of Rida bil Qada. And the Sahaba had achieved this. Allah Ta'ala, in praise of them, defines their hal and their spiritual state and what they had achieved in these glowing terms in the ayat of the Quran Majid. Radiyallahu anhum wa radu an. Allah is pleased with them and they were pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nevertheless, Hazrat Wala then makes dua, to which all the attendees in the Majlis say Ameen. Hazrat Wala says, Allah Ta'ala is maqam tak humko pahuncha de. Allah Ta'ala, let us reach this high and this great stage, the maqam of Rida. Now, Maulana Gangori, Maulana Qasim Saheb, and all these great luminaries of the time, who themselves possessed oceans of knowledge, they all went to Hazrat Haji Imdadullah to achieve this very great maqam and these spiritual states. And Hazrat Haji Saheb, in his humility, would say to them that I actually supposed to come to you people because of your great standing of knowledge. In the terminology, he was not even an istilahi alim, which we would say. However, all these great alims came to him because of the wealth that he possessed in his heart. So, Allahumma inni as'aluka sihhata wal iffata wal amanata wa husn al khulq wal rida bil qadr. Going further, Khaja Muhammad Masoom says, the alamat of and the sign of this rida and the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that the servant is pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all situations, whether it is what comes from Allah is for him or it is against him, whether it brings happiness or it brings sorrow, he is pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is happy with it, whatever awamir, the injunctions, the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, he is happy with it, and in all situations he never ever frowns at whatever comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And open-heartedly he carries out whatever load comes to him from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever he needs to fulfill in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In simple words, whatever is destined for him, he obeys. Rather, he has taslim, he hands himself over to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wassalam, and that particular maktub then comes to an end. Hazrat Wala gives another waqia, he quotes, which Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab used to quote also abundantly. There was this Aka, and he had his slave, and he would give him these fruits, whatever it was it bananas or some other fruit, and then he gives him one after the other. Nevertheless, from there, as he's giving him, he takes one and he tastes it himself. And on tasting it, he realizes it is absolutely bitter. It's not sweet, that particular fruit. And he goes on to say to him, but what's wrong with you? You didn't even say a word. Neither was there any change of expression on your face. Why is it and how is it? I mean, you just silently carried on eating it. And the servant then goes on to say that from these very hands, year after year, time after time, such a long period has passed and I only ate that of sweet. Today, something bitter came my way. So when this is the case, that I'm always eating sweet from these hands, and today bitter came my way, then why should I frown? Why should I complain? And why should I object? Rather, why should I even show any signs of displeasure whatsoever? Here again, Hazrat Wala, so bahut shadd wa mast ke saath is saying that the Aka and the Master is deeply affected, and he says that you have taught me the greatest lesson of life. Now you come here and sit here. Today, now, you will be the boss, you will be the master, and I am your slave, meaning I am now indebted to you for the rest of my life for the great lesson that you have taught me. You know, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab used to say in Tana Bhawan, there also somebody would scold him, etc., due to which he would be patient, and he would just say like that in passing, that I have come here for my own Islah, and I listen to the scolding and reprimanding of Hazrat Tanvi, and if you scold me, etc., also I take it in my stride. You know, he hid himself so much that afterwards, when Allah Ta'ala gave him fame and popularity, and when all the ulama then came to sit at his feet, who comes along? It was none other than Maulana Abdul Bari Nadwi. And then he says to Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab that Hazrat aap Tanabawan ke khanka mein rahe, you stayed in Tanabawan khanka. So Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab says and answers, ha bahut raha ho, I stayed lot, I was there, I stayed abundantly. He goes on to say, लेकिन मैंने आपको तो नहीं देखा, but I didn't see you. Nevertheless, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab would then afterwards tell us, मैं दिखाने के लिए तोड़ा गया. I didn't go there to go and show anyone that I am here and to show people who I am, etc. Nevertheless, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab said to him, मैंने आपको बहुत देखा. I seen you a lot. You didn't see me. I seen you and I noticed you. Nevertheless, his mamul was such that the entire day he would be occupied in the duties which were delegated to him by Hazrat Tanvi, meaning in collecting, rectifying, and then noting it down and putting it into book form, the Malfuzat of Hazrat Tanvi. And then after Asr, he would go out into the open and into the jungles and sit in solitude. This was his day and night in Tanabawan in simple. Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab, in appearance, zyada wajih nahi the. He was not someone, he was very unassuming, let's put it that way. Due to which somebody would just come there and scold him, and there, you know how it goes in the khankas, you would find it, they would want to have tafawuk. One murid wants to be higher than the other. One wants to be here, and one wants to sit here, and one wants to do this and that and the other. Nevertheless, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab chup chap silently would come there, do his thing, whatever he was given, then go into the jungles, etc. Nevertheless, Allah Ta'ala हमको तरीक समझने की तौफीक दे. Let us understand well this path to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and the adab of it, the etiquettes of this path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In simple, Hazrat Wala then encapsulates whatever Hazrat Maulana Shah Muhammad Masoom is saying in this malfuz to the student of his in these couplets. Harche as dost mi rasad nekost. Everything that comes from the side of the beloved friend, referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is only and only good in it. You know, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab used to stay at the station Wali Masjid, the masjid that used to be next to the station there in Deoband. And the reason for him staying there, he was the Imam of that masjid. Nevertheless, he would take, on leaving after the dars, from the kitchen some roti which was given to the students. He would take his, and then he would put some salt or some gur or something sweet with it, and he would eat it. Many a times, because it was the station masjid, many musafirs would come. He would share that food with them. Sometimes others would also join in, due to which he would go to bed hungry. He would have nothing for himself. You know, Maulana Abdul Awal used to say that, listen, if you people want to see some wali, then let me tell you something. This is the man, referring to the great personality, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab Alahbadi. Nevertheless, looking at the attendees of the Majlis, Hazrat Wala then goes on to say, Ye unhi ki jagah hai. Let me tell you something. This very same personality, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab, this here, this place here, this is his seat and this is his place. This is the place where he stayed. Allahabad was his place. So harche as dost mirasad nekost. Whatever comes from the side of the friend, there is only good and only good in it. So at that time, he was not very popular and famous, but it was his student days. The Sheikh was there. And afterwards, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with, what can we even say? So he would tolerate what people would say to him, and he would say that I have come here for my Islah. And he would then even go on further to say that somebody said that and somebody said this, etc. That helped me in my path to Allah. Tariq mein mu'een hai. It helped me and assisted me in my path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. जिसने मिटाया अपना नामो निशा हफ्त इक़लीम का बना सुल्तान. That person who lowered himself, who humbled himself completely and totally for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah ta'ala raised such a person. Nevertheless, in the next maktub of Hazrat Maulana Shah Muhammad Masoom, he writes to Nur Muhammad Surti, and in this particular malfuz he writes, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Hamd wa Salat wa Tabligh wa Da'wat ke baad arz hai. After saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, sending praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sending salawat to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he goes on to say, the ahwal and the conditions here, in every condition is worthy of praise. दोस्तों की खैरियत मतलूब व मकसूद है. I wish so much and desire so much that my friends are all in khairiyat and all in good conditions and are all happy. Awqat को जिक्र और फिक्र के साथ मामूर रखिए. Allahu Akbar. Now he starts advising. He says that spend your time in zikr and fikr. Fill your time completely and totally in zikr and fikr. और मौला हकीकी जल्लत आज़मतुहु की खुशनुदियों के हासिल करने में जान के साथ कोशिश करे और आखिरत का ज़ाद राह तैयार करे. And he goes on to say that the genuine master, referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, spend all your efforts in pleasing Him, in gaining His pleasure and in preparation of whatever you are going to take forth for the akhirat. جاءت الراجفة تتبعها الرادفة جاء الموت بحذافيره جاء الموت بما فيه. हिला देने वाली चीज़, that which would shake and throw everything upside down, referring to the blowing of the sur and the trumpet by Israfil, that has come, meaning the translation of the ibarat and the text above. And then after that, the second trumpet, the second time the trumpet would be blown. Ahwal लिखते रहा करे. And then Hazrat Khaja Muhammad Masoom goes on to give nasihat that continue writing about your spiritual state to me. Our Hazrat Wala thereafter goes on to say that it was our duty that every Thursday we would have to write our halat to Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Saheb. Now you tell me, if the Sheikh is not aware of your spiritual state, what advice will he do, and how will he direct you, and how will he diagnose this, that, or the other? Now that was something very, very difficult. How would a person write there? He has to write, I have takabbur in me, I have this in me, I have that in me. Nevertheless, Hazrat Wala then quotes on one of the occasions that he himself wrote regarding his ahwal and his spiritual state, that balgami admi apne ko pelwan samajhne lage, that a person who's quite fit and he's healthy, he's got some weight, that person is understanding himself to be a wrestler, whereas he's not a wrestler. He's just big like that there because of he's eating much or because of his health condition, balgami admi. But he's understanding himself to be a pelwan. Now that's the spiritual state that overwhelmed our Hazrat Wala at that time there, that sometimes we start thinking that I have accomplished or this or that or the other, and he writes that one line, due to which Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Saheb becomes so happy. Hazrat Wala is saying, one of my ustads, which I learned, got my ta'aleem from, he was also sitting there. And Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Saheb's andaz, his style was absolutely amazing. I mean, no takalluf, no nothing. He looks at the ustad and he reads the letter and the ahwal of the student, referring to our Hazrat Wala, and saying that he's writing this hal of his, not because he learned by you, because he stayed by me. Now he's writing this type of hal. Allahu Akbar. Saf. Now what to do and what to say? This type of silsila where a student writes about his spiritual state and condition is also coming to an end. Nobody is writing their ahwal, etc. Now what can I tell you? This was abundantly found in the Khanqa of Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Saheb. The khutut are all here by me in abundance. There are letters of Hazrat Allama and many others. So I was saying to you, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Saheb used to say that he achieved abundantly by studying and making mutala of the Maktubat Rashidiyya and the Maktubat Masumiyya. Nevertheless, Aurangzeb rahimahullah comes to Hazrat Khaja Muhammad Masoom, and then he says that, Hazrat, please come to the palace and I want you to make my tarbiyat. And he is unable to do that, due to which he sends his son Sheikh Saifuddin. Sheikh Saifuddin stayed with his father Khaja Muhammad Masoom, and at a young age he accomplished and he achieved. A young man at the age of 25 or 30 years old is sent to make the Islah of Aurangzeb, who was the king of the time of the whole Indo-Pak subcontinent. Nevertheless, Aurangzeb himself, after a few days and after some time, says himself, it is because of the barakat of Sahibzada, your illustrious son, that I have achieved so much. Nevertheless, himself, Aurangzeb, his hal was such that he would say, I fear so much and I'm so scared about the darkness of the grave. Allahu Akbar. Now look at this, the fikr of the akhirat. You know, the fikr of the akhirat. So, Hazrat Khaja Muhammad Masoom says that where my father placed me on the seat of his, I do not want to leave this place. I will send my son. The son went, and when he's about to enter the palace, he sees some of these shapes of the elephants, etc. And he said, now look at the himmat and the courage Allah Ta'ala gave him. He said, I'm not prepared to enter your palace. Drop this down and remove this and remove that, and then I will enter. Eventually he enters, he stays there, he makes the Islah and Tarbiyat of the king of the time, Aurangzeb rahimahullah ta'ala. Here towards the end of the letter, Hazrat Khaja Muhammad Masoom then writes that अपने राय सलूक और साहबजादगान की कैफियत लिखते रहे, अहवाल लिखते रहा करे. So write your ahwal, write the ahwal of your spiritual state in your suluk and in your path to Allah, and tell me about your sons as well. And or koshish kare, listen to this last part attentively, and make full effort of this कि आप हर रोज बेहतर हो, तरक्कियात के दरवाजे खुले रहे, and make sure that your every day is better than the yesterday. Allahu Akbar. Because the doors of progress are always open. Man istawa yawmahu fahuwa maghbunun. The person whose 2 days are the same, such a person is at a great loss. Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ahmad Saheb, our Hazrat Wala, is quoting that he would also quote this malfuz abundantly, jiske 2 din barabar hai, wo gate mein hai. The person whose 2 days are the same, most definitely he's at a loss. Now, I mean, you know, people do their maths at the end of the day. The traders, those involved in commerce, you see how much of money you spent, how much you earned, what was the profits for the day. You do your hisab kitab. How come we are not doing that when it comes to our deen, our Islam, our spirituality, our walking, our path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Now listen, Allah ta'ala has made this path so simple and so easy for us. By us merely practicing on the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we can reach easily. Now let us make dua for sihat, and I also ask you people to make dua for my health. Koi mushkil nahi. This path is very easy to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, so much I can tell you, we have made it difficult. Now let us make dua. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Maulana Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Maulana Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Maulana Muhammad. Thereafter, in the dua, Hazrat Wala is asking and pleading to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, due to which all the attendees say Ameen to this dua as well. The dua is that Hazrat Wala is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless him and all those present there, rather one and all, for the fuyuz and the barakat of all the mashayikh Chishtiya and the mashayikh in Naqshbandiya, and the special wazifa and the dua of the mashayikh in Naqshbandiya. Hazrat Wala makes that dua as well. Ilahi maqsood man tui wa rizai tu muhabbat wa ma'rifat khud bideh. Oh Allah, my goal and my objective is only you and your pleasure. Oh Allah, my goal and my objective in life is only you, oh Allah. and only your pleasure. Therefore, bless me with your love and your recognition. Hazrat Khaja Muhammad Masoom used to say, I'm so surprised. It amazes me. Rather, I'm confused about that person in whose heart the love of Allah is not present. How is he actually living? How is he passing his days here on earth? Can he even be alive? الله أكبر. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم بحرمة سيد النبي الكريم صلى الله عليه وسلم.